So, what have you prepared for us tonight for the workshop? I told everybody it's going to be super exciting and insightful. Yeah,
I think the best way to spend this time is mostly questions and answers. So I am oftentimes an advisor for folks that are, and this is outside of my full-time job, but advising companies that are in growth mode. So how to grow your business on Facebook and Instagram is a very important topic for a lot of folks now. So I'd love to make this a organic conversation to help advise people, whether it be on account structure, targeting capabilities, the best bidding strategies. But I think probably where people will get the most value out of this session is, having access to Facebook ads creative expertise. Creative tends to be somewhat of a mystery box, yet Facebook has released stats that show that 56% of your campaign performance does actually depend on the creative inputs. So that's how I envision spending this time. You are on mute, my friend.
Sorry.
It's okay.
That was my fault now. Sometimes it's hopping. This time it was me.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. I did prepare some questions for you, but I really count on our audience actually. So, dear audience, you're more than welcome to type the question, all of your questions into the chat. And if you really want, you can also join us. If you want to join the discussion with Darlene, just please click the join with audio and video, and I can let you in. Okay. So for anyone who's really interested to join the workshop, hopefully, Darlene, you don't mind if someone joins us on
No,
stage.
not at all.
Okay, great. Okay, we already have a question. Oh, questions are coming. Yeah, I just want to. Yeah, it was a teaser from my side to of course, to ask our audience if they want to know what are the most common mistakes companies usually make doing pay-per-click marketing. But already, Martin already has another question for you. So you can start with either of the questions that are listed. Do you see the chat, right?
Yes, of course.
Great.
Yeah. So let's go top down, right? So that way we can try and get through as many questions as possible. So I think the first question here is, what are the most common mistakes companies make doing PPC marketing? So when you think about performance marketing, I think one of the most common mistakes is actually not establishing goals out the gate, right? So of course there's plenty of experimentation that happens in order to determine what your goals on Facebook, for example, should be. But one of the things I see is folks spending outside of their paybacks, which is a common mistake. I can't say that I've ever gotten it. Maybe it's a gain customers now, make revenue later mindset, which can work for some industries. But I think the best PPC marketers out there focus on profitable growth from day one. And what that means is that you're going to have to do a lot of heavier lifting on research, on R&D, and on creative testing. So Facebook makes it very possible and very easy for folks to discover what's working just with a couple $100 of spend against an ad. Now, one thing that you can do is start to create ads for different persona types and really map out who the best audiences are for you to reach, and then study downstream lifetime value of those cohorts. But I think one of the mistakes that I see very common is not really investing time in some sort of predictive lifetime value model. It's just not enough anymore to focus on CPA. You have to be able to identify early micro conversion events that oftentimes correlate to better downstream users, higher average order value, better lifetime value. So that's one thing. And related to that, I think there's also this mistake of once you have a customer, they're yours to keep. Now, we've done a lot of work pulling research data about if you're a customer of company A, what is the likelihood that you're a customer of company B if those two are competitors? And actually, the answer is that it's very high. You know, brand loyalty will only take you so far. That there has to be some work done on the back end to keep those folks. So one of the things that confuses I think confuses a lot of people is like if you gain a customer and then you put them in your exclusion audiences and you never talk to them again and you expect them to come back and buy from you, and that's just inviting your competitors to convert them onto their brands, right? So that's one mistake I think people make. The second one in relation to that is not adapting your funnel. So interestingly enough, and this is something I feel like because Facebook has made it so within reach for folks to continue getting new business through the marketing channels, you oftentimes forget that once traffic is on your site, that you're going to eventually run out of low-hanging fruit, and you're going to have to convert folks that are in lower consideration groups. Now, if you're sitting there with a funnel that's even 2 years old, again, you're inviting your competition who's probably going to have a funnel that's more addressable for folks in 2020. COVID-19 has actually accelerated this phenomenon, right? Like now we're all home, we're most of us are digital. There's a lot of opportunity for D2C marketers to capture retail customers and convert them into brand advocates for your companies. And so I think the lack of adaptability, if I had to summarize what the mistake is lack of adaptability, and then not focusing on profitable growth on day one. And then obviously there are the usual suspects. So mistakes in measurement, not calibrating the effectiveness of your campaigns with regular conversion lift studies, and really understanding the incremental impact that your campaigns are having on your business. Because remember, again, all these platforms of advertisement, they're giving you a rule-based system in most cases, right? And so there can be a lot of performance if you're not calibrating your performance based on incrementality tests.
Interesting. Interesting. Yeah, a lot of aspects.
A lot of technicals.
Oh yeah, a lot of aspects to take into account. Martin wants to know if are there any common suggestions regarding the B2B? Are there? I don't know. Is there any common recipe maybe?
Yeah. So I shy away from saying there's a recipe for anything. The recipes are always changing, right? So a little bit of background about what TubeScience does. We put out, we reach about 100 to 200 million people every single day with the videos that we create. Within every single video we create, we're building at least one experiment. That experiment is meant to teach us something about what motivates certain people to take purchasing actions. And those experiments are pulled back into our internal system and aggregated and used to make decisions moving forward. If you're a B2B marketer, inherently, you're going to have smaller targeting groups, right? Which means that on Facebook, you have different levers that you can pull to empower your performance. Now, you're losing that lever as a B2B marketer because broad audiences and reach and really letting Facebook optimize in broad audience environment is a huge advantage. And now you're competing against a lot of advertisers that have that advantage against you. So what you have to do is you need to do the heavy lifting elsewhere where you can control. And I think creative tends to be the most powerful lever for conversion for B2B marketers. Let me explain to you why. B2B products tend to be longer consideration. So they also tend to be pricier, right? So the advantage you have is that you can actually outbid a lot of those mass market products, right? Now, that being said, the way the Facebook algorithm works is it will allocate future delivery based on folks that are taking action on your campaign in the past. So you obviously have at the pixel level some data stored, perhaps at your account and campaign and ad set level some data stored. But the most important thing is that your creative is doing a good job carving out the right persona types, the right type of audiences really early on, so that way you are training the algorithm to work for you. Some of the mistakes that I think are made here is that your people that are making creative tend to focus more on upper level events, such as views, such as click-through rate or traffic, whereas then you're thinking about what you're doing there. You're training the algorithm based on traffic that actually is not going to convert for you. And that's the future delivery you're going to get if you set up your campaigns that way. Whereas if you front load, if you do something to front load in your creative, call it make a video, that is highly relevant for a persona type that your product can be a huge advantage for, then you're going to train Facebook inversely to deliver to very high value customers for you. And then you don't stop there, right?
Interesting. You always
Yeah.
thought you can't train the Facebook algorithm, right?
Yes, I mean that's essentially the name of the game. The best marketers in the world have realized that you can start to create swim lanes within your campaigns that target different types of users. So I think a common mistake that B2B marketers make, because their audiences are smaller, is that they target that homogenous user that they see as the most high value person, and then they tend to ignore opportunities to convert different types of people. So one of the things that you can do is called a problem resolution approach to creative. So if you're B2B, you're solving a problem for somebody somewhere, right? Which means that if you present in the creative, what is that problem you're solving? And then you present supporting evidence for your claim of how you're solving the problem for those folks, you're going to get the right type of attention. Not a lot of attention, but the right type of traffic watching your ad. And then obviously you're sending the right kind of users over to your page to fire off the pixel event that's mapped to your Facebook objective. Now, once you identify a lane that works for you, the important thing to do is to iterate on that concept. So oftentimes, if you're a B2B marketer, your entire campaign performance is very dependent off the hits or the winners that are at any given moment performing the best within your account. I almost never see folks going back and making iterations. Like you can swap out talent, you can add new testimonials. I think that this is something that is a huge miss. Because if something is working, inherently probably what's happening in the first few seconds is really working to get the right type of attention. And then you can start to add or swap out different types of your video, parts of the video to keep the content fresh. On Facebook, nobody wants to watch the same thing twice. And so I think that's hopefully, Martin, that was relevant advice, but feel free to follow up in the chat if you have something that's a question more specific to your particular business.
I think, Martin, you're more than satisfied with the answer, but yeah, like you're more than welcome to follow up with that. Well, I think Urshka has another really, really interesting question. This is challenging, right? Isn't it?
So what does the death of browser tracking cookies mean for growth marketers? How will post-cookie world look? This is an amazing question. Thank you for asking it. I think the reality is that cookies are over time becoming flawed. So if you listen to Facebook, they'll tell you that solely cookie-based measurement system will actually misattribute a lot of the performance, a lot of conversions that you're getting based off your campaigns. In a data-driven world, that means that you're making decisions off of unreliable information, right? So I think that the lack of a shift to outside of cookies would be detrimental for performance marketers. And it makes you wonder, like, oh, why are companies like Facebook really driving this change? And it's because from, I think, day one, when Facebook made the conscious decision to make tools for performance marketers, identity was their most powerful tool, right? Facebook, unlike other platforms, really knew who that person was, and they could tie that person together across mobile and desktop, for example. And so I think that this is something to look forward to, that will be only an improvement upon measuring your campaigns, and not just relying on cookies to measure the success of your campaigns.
Great, thank you very much for the answer. Sasha wants to know, how do you structure your testing?
Sasha, that's it. So there's a few frames of thought here. So for creative testing, it depends how much you're spending. The more you're spending, the quicker you can test. What we've found to work the best is to make creative that's very specific, personalized, and tailored towards a persona type. And that carves out the audiences very early. And a lot of our clients, because we're working primarily with larger advertisers, can get a very quick read within 1 to 3 days if something is working or if it's not. And because we don't charge for production, we're a pay for performance model, then our clients can easily turn off the things that are not working, because there really wasn't a risk incurred since we paid for the production ourselves, and then really scale the things that are working. Now, I think the question is, how can you emulate this as a single advertiser or a single brand? And what I would say is that focus on experimentation that's going to drive future change for your creative, right? Don't just throw spaghetti against the wall. Like, build experiments into your, always ask yourself, what is this experiment going to do to make my next round of videos better than this one? And then build those types of experiments and launch within Facebook, and look at an upper funnel event that is closely correlated to your key performance indicators down the line, and use that as an indicator of what's working and what isn't working. Iterate towards what's working, and then really look at what's not working in modules. So one example of that, if something isn't working, most people will take it and throw it in the trash and say that we tried that, it didn't work. Now, on Facebook, you have a bunch of rich metrics that can tell you the story about why that didn't work. I think an easy to follow example is, let's say that you had an ad that had a very good thumb stop rate. So your impression to 3-second view ratio was much higher than your account benchmark. However, it didn't convert well. Now, you might assume that the entire ad didn't work, but what I would say is, why not take the first few seconds of that ad that did work really well for you, and then dissect why the second part you kind of lost the opportunity, and then combine it with something that is working. So take that hook that was working really well to get you attention, and then reframe the rest of the narrative structure to something else that can work. So I think that's one approach. The long-term approach, the one that you really scale in your business, is actually by focusing on incrementality. So I think one of the mistakes that folks make pretty often is that they do not run incrementality lift studies against channels. And that can be very dangerous because because you're not really understanding the incremental growth that Facebook is essentially driving for you. And then the second thing here is, I think if you're using split testing, so this is a mistake that a lot of folks make. Split testing is a very powerful tool to measure a single variable. If you're measuring a red button, blue button, for example. But I see a lot of advertisers really overusing that measurement tool in ways that don't really answer a question for you, because Facebook has a lot of people refer as a black box. You don't really know like who the audiences are that are being served the ads a lot of times. So I think that is part of how we structure our testing, is that we start to study, if we made an ad, who are the people converting? So a lot of folks are not structuring their testing to map to multiple dimensions. So you have to test on different visual techniques, communication styles, and then map them to a persona type. And then really store that data to inform your creative team on how to move forward and create videos that are effective for your business. Hopefully that answers your question. I know that was kind of like a 3-prong answer, but the short answer to a long story is that the testing strategy you should use is going to differentiate depending on what you're trying to inform.
Sasha is more than satisfied with your answer. Yeah, it's amazing. Well, actually, coming from your mouth it seems like it's really a simple thing, but I believe it's not. You just take the most successful or the best ingredient you have, you just put it together. Is it always about the experimenting, or if you're just paying attention
if
on
you're asking me, yes.
Okay.
Right? Because what's the alternative? The alternative is assuming, right?
Yeah.
And I feel like a lot of folks make the mistake of looking to larger brands. So, Facebook I think a little bit over a year ago has done a lot of companies a favor and publicized ads library. So now you can go and look at any brand's content, what they're running with ads, right? And so I think a smart and intelligent person might assume like, oh, let me go look at larger brands like Coca-Cola or Walmart and see what they're doing and then try and copy what they're doing. Now, the mistake that you're making with that thought process is that not only do those companies have the brand equity that a lot of these smaller startups don't have, you're really not doing the heavy lifting to show people why is your product superior to the competitive set, right? Why does this product have value for people, especially in a COVID-19 environment where people are really focused on value and still willing to make purchases, right? So interestingly enough, we've been seeing this kind of rally of conversions after the initial phase of COVID-19, which obviously for a couple of weeks, everything was a little bit shaky. If you're in a stable market with a price sensitive product, there are still ways to highlight the value that people can get from your product that are really sellable. So I think it's less simple, right? It's less like simple and more data driven creative decisions that are really going to help drive folks to grow their businesses in a profitable way.
Great. With us, he wants to know what's your personal driving force. What is your why? Andraž is another successful entrepreneur here in Slovenia.
I mean, I think any growth marketer's driving force is making money, right? Like if we're going to be very honest, I think we're a very obsessed group of people with driving businesses. So growing businesses is not just a hobby. I find it to be competitive with the companies that are actually driving people to products that are disappointing. So I think I get this question a lot, like, why did you leave Facebook after 5.5 years to join Facebook marketing partner TubeScience? And one thing I loved about what TubeScience was doing is that this company is very user centric. So we oftentimes think of our clients are not actually our clients. Our clients are our clients' customers. And so a lot of what we do is actually focus on diversity in marketing. Now, as a woman in leadership, that's obviously something that is extremely important to me. As a child of immigrants, that's obviously something that's extremely important to me. And I think that there was this kind of culture of things looking the same about a couple of years ago that I wanted to combat against. And so that's why I joined a company that really focuses on driving growth by making ads that are relatable. If you look at some of our ads, we have some examples on our sites and case studies that you can go ahead and check out. But they really look different than what you might think works. But what we love to do is really like represent these products in such a way that when you receive them, you're going to know what you're getting. And then that has this amazing lift effect on advertising, because they're, you know, you're driving better average order value, you're driving better lifetime value by doing so. You're sending the right type of traffic to your website because you're training the algorithm to be able to do so. And so I think that's really a motivating factor for me. But in reality, I just love working with performance marketers. So I think there's a lot of people out there that will divorce like brand versus performance marketing versus whatever. And I think everybody has kind of like their own sandbox to play in. I am, you know, in college, I was a statistics tutor. So I'm a very like, I actually love getting my hands dirty with data and following data. And so that's something that I've been very passionate about. So call it the nerd life if you want, but I think that's probably one of my driving forces as well. People like you guys are just fun to work with.
Great, great. Okay, yeah, Ushka has written something. Yeah, do you have some special limitations on the industry's countries that can be promoted on it? Have a challenge to find efficient ways addressing generations that we till now keep engaged on offline clubbing events and testing our new products, offline experience, and making experience around it. Video is of course top choice. Wow, interesting.
Okay, so I think
Interesting.
Ertza's question is what you're reading. So let me just read it a little bit louder. So Ertza says, I'm looking at your service, very interesting. Media-wise, do you do creative and distribution? So the answer for the first question is no. We create all the content ourselves. We pay for all the production ourselves. Our clients all have in-house buying teams, or they work with freelancers as contractors that are expert buyers. So there's this whole entire industry now of expert media buyers that is call it in between an agency and an in-house team that is just cheaper and a lot of times better at driving performance. And those folks are actually managing budgets, right? With our model, we ask that our clients don't spend on our ads unless we're beating your internal CPA, including our fees. So it works out that the client is actually controlling the budget, because that way they can handicap our CPA and only spend when the economics make sense. So that's the answer to your first question. Your second question is, do you have some special limitations on industries, countries that can be promoted? Have a challenge to find efficient ways in addressing Gen Z that till now keep engaged on offline clubbing events and testing our new products, which are offline experiments, and making experience around it. Video is, of course, the top choice. Something chat-wise, something like chat-wise would be nice. I think what you're asking, and go ahead and clarify in the chat if this is not, if I'm heading in a completely different direction than your question. But so, I mean, you still have the opportunity to measure offline events, right? If you work with your developers, you can go ahead and upload conversion events that happen later on down the line or don't happen on the digital space into Facebook. And then you'll still get the benefits of training Facebook's delivery algorithm to learn who to deliver to for you. So I would say if you're not already doing that, definitely step one is do so. The other thing that you can do is start to create audiences to target towards that are based on value. So something I don't see a lot of folks doing are creating value-based lookalikes when you lack a constant stream of data passback that's going to inform the algorithm. As a very large advertiser, that's a huge advantage for you. Now, if you are a smaller shop and your event is happening offline, you really need to do the heavy lifting to feed the algorithm as much data as possible. And one thing that you can do is create lookalike audiences that have a value appended to them for you. So you know better than Facebook at this point who's going to be a valuable customer for you. Not only can Facebook find folks that tend to be more valuable by doing so, they also optimize away from the folks that are delivering a negative value for your business. So that's something that if you haven't taken advantage of, certainly go ahead and do so. And then through the third part of your question, which is how can you create videos across country lines. Now, so TubeScience, we're creating ads for 122 countries and 15 languages. I think some of the things that are very important to realize is that I mentioned earlier on today that a focus on profitable growth tends to be very closely correlated with successful businesses that are growing in this COVID-19 environment. Another finding that we've had is actually launching from day one on a global scale. So there are a lot of 3PLs that you can, if you're shipping a physical product that you can work with, that can provide you with early expertise to do so. What that's doing is obviously you are not limiting yourself to the most expensive audiences in the world, which tend to be those in developed markets. But if you're an event-based advertiser, I think one thing that a lot of event-based advertisers do that I think has given me a gray hair or two that you can you can avoid these mistakes is event-based videos tend to be very rich in content. And then at the end of the day, you really forget that these videos are going to be served on a sound off environment for the most part. So I think with the exception of stories, where majority of users actually might listen with sound on, all the other placements you're going to be running on are sound off. So if you don't have flyovers, text that's describing what it is somebody's looking at within your campaigns, certainly try and do so. And then keep the language simple enough to where it's easy to follow in a reading environment what the events are that you're trying to promote. So I think Gasper has a question. What would you say is the minimal budget to try marketing a product on Facebook?
That's a challenging one, right?
Yeah, I mean, it depends on how expensive your product is. It depends on your consideration funnel. So obviously, as those things are higher, you're going to need a higher budget for testing. I think one way to save money on testing is to design experiments that will, again, answer your question, that you can iterate on that experiment. So an expensive way to test is to test an entire video by itself with no variations and then see if it works or if it doesn't work, right? What are you getting out of that? You might have spent $1,000 against that, and all you're getting is a binary answer. You're getting a yes, no. Now, oftentimes the answer is going to be no, especially if you're figuring out beginning stages of figuring out what's going to work for you. So what you want to do is set up your videos in such a way that you can test multiple variants with the same budget. So something that we're doing at TubeScience is obviously we're aggregating all these experiments. So call it the largest testing budget in the world. And what you can do to get as close to what we're doing as possible is introduce, call it 3 headers with the same narrative structure. Instead of just running one video and saying that that's working, use the same video with multiple headers, or the same video with different talents, or the same header with different calls to action, the same narrative structure at different speeds, right? Giving you tons of examples. We tend to test on about 50 plus variants within video. But what you can do as an advertiser that's a single base advertiser, you can certainly test multiple variants with the same dollars, and then don't wait to iterate. So I think one of the things that a lot of folks do is they might think, oh, something worked, and then spend a bunch of money against it and exhaust it, and then you're left with like nothing after that. Something that is important is continuous iteration of your content. So as you find a winner, so let's say that you finally find your yes, and you start scaling that out, one thing you're going to see is the more you spend, the more the rate of churn is going to go up. And rate of churn on Facebook is actually exponential instead of linear. So whereas you might assume that you got away last month with $100,000 of spend with 10 creatives, an intelligent person is going to think, okay, next month to get to 200,000, I need 20. Whereas in reality is you're going to need more like 50 different variations of creative, because the more you spend, the higher your rate of churn is on the channel. So I think if you are, I really enjoyed hearing from Aaron Ross on the main stage earlier. He talked about the importance of predictable pipeline. I think equally important it is to understand the pipeline of creative you have to sustain higher levels of spend on digital channels. Jesper, I don't know if that was a little bit too high level, but feel free to give me some details about your business, and I would be happy to tailor my answer specific to your company.
One quick question regarding the creation of it. And you said, of course, you shouldn't just put on a long video. When you're posting a video or promoting a video or boosting a video, I don't know, or content on the Facebook, it says for several months now, then video should be longer than, I don't know, 3 minutes to be shown more often. So this is kind of a contrary. We have to produce even more to be able to test, or this actually requires really a lot of input into the creative, right?
Right. So I think the solution to that is actually shooting your footage in such a way that will provide your team with a content library that's usable for many situations, right? So one of the mistakes that I find in production often is that a lot of time is spent on one brief. That brief makes its way through multiple chains of command of approval. By the time you even get on set to start creating the footage, you might have lost even the relatability of that brief that was written in the first place. So I think cutting unnecessary steps in the creative process become really important to answer your question there. But the other part of this is shooting footage is oftentimes like way more time consuming than it needs to be, right? So at this stage, these iPhones and these Android phones all have 4K, 8K cameras on them. You can easily buy some very like lightweight lighting and professional camera equipment on Amazon. And what you can do is spend an entire day doing multiple shoots, right? So don't just do one shoot and wrap, and don't get hung up on perfection of the content. Oftentimes that's actually delivers negative value to you on Facebook because it looks like an ad, right? I think that there's a lot of valuable users out there that just don't want to be advertised to. And the ads that they respond to are those that are the most relatable. The people that are in them look like real people, right? So I think not overthinking those details actually ends up with positive lift in terms of growing your account. But I digress. My original point is shooting footage in such a way that will allow you to use it in multiple different environments. And by environments, I mean videos, right? So you might shoot, 2 to 3 different talents saying the same thing, right? So if you have a very good testimonial, or if there are a lot of people that are saying the same thing about what they love about your product in reviews, you can take that learning and have multiple talents say the same thing. Suddenly you're appealing to, let's say, 3 different audiences instead of 1, because people tend to react to folks that they either aspire to be or that look and feel like them, that they can relate to, right? So in that way, you're actually maximizing the potential of your footage. And I think on the back half of that, so now that you have your footage and you're testing it, failing to look at the data that you're getting back and letting that data inform you about what you can change about that video moving forward is also a very good way to spend too much on creative testing.
Thank you, Darlene. Maya has another question for you, actually. Could one person manage both? See that one? Can one manage?
One person?
Yeah.
Actually, you'd be shocked. I think some of the so I mean we work with companies like, for example, Fabletics. I love the textile group. The textile group has very talented in-house, I think 30-person plus full-time employees working on creative, and they really know what they're doing. And this team obviously puts out a lot of effective content all the time, right? I think that so we work with teams like that. We also work with companies that have smaller creative teams. One of the advantages you're getting when it's the same person doing it, like so the same person actually shooting the footage, as well as buying the media, is that you're inherently getting the data that you're getting passed back from your media spend built into the creative process. Now, this person is going to get exhausted over time, right? There's only so much video one person can create. So I think it's an effective way to get started. That's for sure. It's also going to be valuable for you to have an in-house expert on video, because then they'll know once it's time to hire for or to outsource, they will know exactly what to look for. And that is an add-on value that I don't think you can get if you have your creative team separated from your growth team.
And Inka also has a question for you, Darlene. You maybe have the following data, is, I believe, for how many percent can grow the revenue can grow of an entrepreneur compared when advertising on Facebook.
I mean, I still have yet to see any single advertiser max out Facebook, right? Facebook is sitting on a sleeping giant with 2 billion users, WhatsApp, which I know is extremely popular internationally. And they're just massive. There's massive scale. So I don't know if I've even found the ceiling with that channel. Of course, there are opportunities to diversify. Of course, there's opportunities to use other channels like Pinterest and TikTok, and Twitter and YouTube, etc., to advertise your business as well. But that being said, the percent that you can grow revenue on, it kind of depends on your baseline, right? If you're if you are a smaller company with less revenue, then your percent is going to be in the 5 figures, tens of thousands of percents a year if you get this right. And if you have, if you're a larger company with a larger baseline, obviously your percentage is going to be lower, but still healthy. So long as you're adapting your strategy to what's actually working, and that's not just from an advertising perspective, that's also from your conversion funnel. So what happens after the fact? Excuse me. Sorry about that.
No problem at all. Just take your time.
As long as you're adapting your conversion funnel along with your creative strategy, I think you have untapped potential. So if you look to some of these D2C marketers that have really have gone from day one to either an acquisition or an IPO on Facebook. So look at companies like Stitch Fix, for example, or Movement Watches. Peloton has done really well on Facebook as well. And these companies have all focused on personalizing their products for the people that are buying it. So if you think about, I love the example Stitch Fix and Ipsy. So I have the pleasure of working with Ipsy now. Stitch Fix was my client back when I was at Facebook. I'm literally obsessed with what they're doing. Actually, this is a Stitch Fix blouse. So, but if you are continuing to focus on the and being nimble about the quality that you can deliver to your customers, they'll stick around, right? So in Ipsy's example, I think if there are any other Ipsy subscribers out there, you'll notice that the product teams there work super hard to make sure that the next month's delivery of products that you're going to get are not only personalized, but they're also relevant, right? So they're really good at discovering these brands for skincare or cosmetics, hair care, etc. That you never found out, because these focusing on really high quality, not necessarily have deep pockets, for example, to get into a Sephora or a retailer. So what I love about what they're doing is they're really focusing on a customer experience. And they use a lot of insights that they get from their inbound traffic to be able to inform those decisions. And Stitch Fix is doing the same thing, right? Like Stitch Fix has the gentleman who created their algorithm of delivery famously was hired from Netflix, right? So they're taking a tech approach to growth. So I think to answer your question, I'd have to know where you are to be able to say where you can go. But what I've seen in the past is really kind of insane numbers, right? Like you in the tens of thousands of growth on a quarter-over-quarter basis, if you are following some of the best practices that we've talked about today so far. What I love about what Facebook is doing is Facebook is continuing to improve their measurement solutions to measure incremental growth, right? It doesn't mean so much to me as a growth marketer to see CPAs. I want to see an incremental CPA now, right? So it's kind of like that classic children's book. Like if you give a mouse a cookie, they're going to want a glass of milk to go with it. If you give them a glass of milk, they're going to want this and that. Right now, I'm that mouse and I want to see incremental growth and incremental impact on businesses as well. So I think one thing you can do, Alenka, is start on day one, focusing on return on ad spend or identifying predictive lifetime value events that lead to better users for you down the line, and then start to create processes that are catered towards those users when you're restructuring your conversion funnel.
Darlene, going on, it's okay. Urshka, what does Urshka say?
She's cooking.
Yeah. But Andrash has another question for you, which is, how do you see the future of e-commerce industry in Europe? Maybe also maybe as well in the current
bullish.
situation.
Very bullish. I'm very bullish about international e-commerce companies. I think that COVID-19 has actually accelerated the need for good D2C services. Even the large companies like Amazon, for example, are struggling to deliver on time, which presents an opportunity for folks that can be a little bit more nimble, a little bit quicker about delivering those products to their users. I found that folks in Europe, there's a lot of buyer talent in Europe as well. And that can make or break your business, right? If you have a talented buyer working on your account who's experienced, who is not changing too many things or not trigger happy, and actually understands the way that the delivery algorithm is working, then that can really make a difference. And there's a lot of talent that I've fortunately gotten to know in Europe. But I feel like because Europe was also part of the early wave in terms of what happened, the effects of COVID-19 and people really needing to shelter in place and leaning on companies like delivery services, et cetera, that came out of this pandemic, then I feel like there is a lot of potential. The earth is definitely flattening. And so a little bit of insights about what's happening here in the US is that a lot of these larger companies are actually telling employees that they're going to be working from home through the end of the year, right? Now, what does that tell somebody that's in a leadership position who hires for folks and pays a premium, for example, to hire somebody that is going to be living in San Francisco or New York or Los Angeles, for example? Now, there is talent around the world that can suddenly work for these companies in a remote environment. So you don't need to, you can hire like 5 or 6 people now that are just as good, if not better, at managing your businesses. And you don't need to pay a premium to get somebody out of Silicon Valley. So I think the future of e-commerce in general around the globe, not just in Europe, but the future of e-commerce, like it's finally tipped, right? As somebody that has been speaking about performance marketing since the 2000s, when everybody else was talking about brand, I think that there is a acceleration of the rate in which larger retailers need to catch up with smaller e-commerce brands in terms of their acquisition strategies. And that's been something actually that's presented an opportunity.
It's great to hear. It's great to hear. We have Alenka back with another question. Andras is not asking because of the COVID-19 crisis, but because of the Amazon. Will Amazon come? That's a concrete one.
I've been asking not because of Amazon. Will Amazon conquer all? It's interesting so I feel like that was the mentality here a few years ago, and now
it's gone already.
Nah, it's not. I mean, Amazon's an amazing. Look what I think what we should be doing as non-Amazon e-commerce companies is learning from what Amazon's doing well, right? And then adapting our models to improve upon them. So one thing that you can do, one advantage you have as a smaller company is that you are able to be very nimble, and you can adapt to what Amazon is unable to do. So if you look at some of the companies now that are doing really well are some of those products that are priced out on Amazon. So if you look at to products like weights, anything fitness related, if you're looking at masks, people need masks, right, to be able to live their lives at some normal degree. So I don't think that I think we're actually heading away from a monopoly type environment. If you look at this from a historical standpoint, the thing to understand is that what came before Amazon, and we're looking at for companies like Walmart, for example, that were like these one-stop shops for everything, right? That have been around for centuries and have done really well. And then Amazon disrupted Walmart in such a way, right? Now Walmart's doing a really great job focusing on e-commerce and like really providing quick solutions. But then like who disrupted Amazon? And I'm sure everybody has heard of a company called Wish.com, for example, that they created this incredible algorithmically driven shopping experience for people, and really focused on this notion that I don't really mind waiting 2 to 3 weeks, for example, to get my products, as long as it's half the price. So that's kind of how Wish started to gain traction. Was what Amazon was doing was kind of the opposite. They had Prime, and Prime was like their marquee product, and you can get, you know, your product shipped to your door in less than 2 minutes, and and Wish.com kind of like grew their empire, disrupting that mentality that became like Amazon assumed that was what everybody wanted. And now there's an opportunity to disrupt what Wish is doing, right? Like Wish, I think every large company will inherently have their downfalls because you just can't do too many things in an expert level. And so there are always room for opportunities for you to disrupt the largest players in this space. I think, you know, they're making it tougher and tougher. But my point is that these windows of disruption are shrinking, right? So whereas it took maybe 40 to 30 years for somebody to come around and disrupt Walmart, it really only took 10 years or less then for a disruptor to come in and disrupt Amazon. And so the rate of innovation is being accelerated. And so I think as long as there is disruption happening, then that's good news for consumers, for example, because the only thing that you can do is focus on making those experiences better to disrupt these companies.
Thank you, Darlene. Alenka has another. Wants to get the question to get more insider information how it is. She would also like to know if you can mention which other digital channels you as an expert can recommend.
This largely depends on your product type. Alenka, if you can be specific about perhaps what company you are starting or who you're working for right now, I can maybe give you a little bit more of a focused response.
She worked in the previous one. She's a risk consultant,
Risk consulting,
international insurance broker. Yeah. Well, as far as I
Personally
understand,
interested on
Alenka
digital
is
marketing.
personally interested in digital marketing.
Yeah.
So,
So I think that there's a few things that you can try to focus on. So I think earlier somebody was asking about B2B marketing. That similarly to you, you have a very long and oftentimes disjointed conversion funnel, right? What happens in your industry most of the time is the collection of leads, and then your job depends largely on the quality of those leads that are coming in, and then they might call, you have a phone call with you later on down the line, and then there's an offline conversion event that happens that you then can load back into the system. Now I've seen success on Facebook with these larger consideration funnel products if you can get really good at driving those high quality leads, right? So there's two kind of frames of thought. Either you spray and pray, which I don't recommend, right? That's the strategy of driving so many leads, having your call center go quality over or quantity over quality, and your call it 5% of those leads will actually make you a positive return, even though 95% of them didn't convert. So if you have a product that has such a high return, you can definitely get away with that. Now, what you can do to improve the quality of those leads coming in, which this is actually what my recommended strategy would be to focus on creating some sort of ads. And this is channel agnostic, right? I'm not talking about just Facebook or Instagram. I'm talking about if you're doing things on LinkedIn or Twitter, it doesn't matter. But the ad itself cannot be lazy, right? I oftentimes see folks in these industries still running static images and then wondering why the campaigns are not working to drive quality traffic, right? When is the last time you made any major decision off of a static image, right? And then the fallback, what ends up happening is that folks then they start offering these special discounts or offers or like and then you end up eating into your margins, right? As a company, you make it really hard to turn a profit when you do so. Focusing on driving the right type of traffic, I think, is going to be arguably the most important thing for you to find success from digital channels. The other thing that I do want to touch on here is that there is a growing market space for OTT. So now you can start to because sound on tends to be a little bit more important for higher consideration type groups of products. And so I would say that if you are able to take a digital approach to non-digital channels, you might find some great results there as well. The most important thing for you is that you're actually building experiments into the creative and then mapping those back into future decisions. Because for this specific industry, this is the most dangerous thing to do, is to just assume that the static creative is going to work, and then sit there and twiddle your thumbs, wondering why you're not getting any good leads off of a piece of creative that's not actually informing people on why they should come and sign up for your service.
that was straight. And since there are no questions left, I do have some, but mostly they have been answered through this. We have talked about the future of e-commerce. We have talked about the future of PPC marketing. It was so insightful, Darlene, really amazing. And since our time is unfortunately up, I would wrap up this amazing workshop. That our participants were just as thrilled as I was, and enjoying this really insightful talk and workshop with you. So
the pleasure was all mine. I enjoyed all of your questions as well. These are amazing questions. I can tell this is such a smart group of people, just based on the questions that you're asking. And don't be shy. Feel free if you have anything that you want answered later on down the line. I'm very LinkedIn friendly, and will help any entrepreneur that comes my way. So please don't be shy. If you need to reach out afterwards, I'll make myself available.
Right. Thank you very much. It's getting louder and louder here in the production of the Podim DX. So, yeah, thank you, Darlene. We'll keep
Absolutely.
in touch, and pleasure hosting you on this
No,
Podim.
pleasure was mine.
Right.
Have a great night. Bye.
You too. Bye. Have a great day.